London, 1888, the season, gilded, brittle, humming with secrets and sharp edges. People say it's a place where futures are decided, but that's just how they frame it, polite, polished. Really, it's where lives become currency, where someone like Elias Ashford gets traded, not chosen. Elias figured that out long before he ever saw a ballroom's chandelier, before society's gaze fixed him like an insect on a pin. He learned it in the silent stretches of his home, where the servants stopped whispering as he walked past, their backs stiff with caution. Tutors didn't just teach him Latin and history, they shaped his very existence, every gesture, every breath, how he sat, how he moved, how he spoke. Everything was scrutinized and polished until nothing of his original self remained. But the lesson struck deepest the day his father stopped calling him son. You are an omega. Elias was 12. The physician had barely finished saying it when things shifted. The air, the faces, the space that suddenly chilled between father and child. Not a single thing in the room moved, but everything felt colder, more distant. And so began the pattern. Yes, father. The answer was right. Elias learned fast. There were correct answers and dangerous ones. The wrong word was like a cracked mirror, everything behind it warped, broken. His mother had been an omega. That was all anyone bothered to say. Never that she laughed. Never that she smelled like lavender and winter air. Never that she comforted Elias when he couldn't sleep. Those moments vanished, never acknowledged, filed under useless and forgotten. Your mother was weak, his father said once. That ended Elias's questions forever. After that, life was stripped down and repurposed. Childhood? Not really. Preparation, that's what it became. Most omegas were trained to tempt and yield, softening their edges, to invite. Elias was taught to disappear. Bitter tonics suppressed his scent, burning his throat until nothing lingered but the memory. His emotions were monitored. Correction started quiet, grew sharper every time he got it wrong. Too reactive, too visible, too much. So Elias became less expressive, less reactive, less alive, less everything. By 16, Elias managed the impossible, an omega who didn't draw attention. He could stand amid dominant alphas and somehow slip through their notice, invisible and untouched, rare, valuable. But being rare comes with its own danger. Obedience and control, they're not the same. True control, that comes from resistance. On his 20th birthday, Lord Ashford decided the season would secure Elias's future, secure as if futures could be nailed to the floor. You will marry well, his father told him. Not happily, not safely. Well, Elias felt the cold difference, but said nothing. Silence was an armor, but that only lasted until the night everything changed. Ballrooms glimmered, gold, crystal, candlelight throwing patterns across polished floors. Music floated, light and regimented, everything rehearsed to perfection. That's how London worked. At the top of the staircase, Elias watched with gloved hands resting on the railing. Everyone was down there, watching, measuring. His father, "Stand straight." Elias adjusted, "Just so. Do not invite attention." "I won't." "Do not refuse it either." There it was, the underlying rule. He descended, each step like a performance, each breath another rehearsal. The whispers followed him. Lord Ashford's omega. They kept him hidden. He's older than expected. Elias ignored them. He knew how. Then the doors opened and everything shifted. So subtle but impossible to miss. Every omega in the room felt it first, then the alphas, then everyone else. Someone powerful had arrived. Blackthorn, someone whispered, returned from the north. He controls the trade routes, half the city, some say, never taken an Omega. Rumors, but with teeth. Elias didn't want to look, but sometimes instinct loses to curiosity. He looked. Cassian Blackthorn stood near the entrance, tall, still, wrapped in dark formal wear, nothing soft, nothing typical. He didn't belong. The room felt smaller in his presence, sharper. Cassian's gaze swept the room, caught on Elias. Everything inside Elias flickered. Awareness, not fear, not submission. It was like recognition played out beneath his skin. Cassian tilted his head, considering. Elias looked away first, but it was already too late. He'd been seen. Their first meeting was supposed to be orchestrated, slow, layered behind introductions and measured conversations. Cassian ignored the script. "May I have this dance?" Elias turned, too quickly, too aware. Cassian stood close, violating propriety's margins. Elias's instinct screamed to refuse, but that would draw attention, and attention here could be fatal. "Yes," Elias said. Music shifted. They stepped onto the floor. Cassian's hand settled at Elias's waist, firm, steady, not claiming. The presence was immediate. Not so much scent, more like the gravity in the air. "You're holding back," Cassian said, voice low. Elias's breath hitched. "I don't know what you mean." "You do." That certainty unsettled him. Elias focused on the dance, the steps, anything except the man at his side. "You shouldn't be here," Elias murmured. "Neither should you." Elias tightened his control. "That's not your concern." Cassian's hand shifted. "Everything about you is my concern." Strangely, the words didn't sound possessive, just absolute. Elias hated the certainty. The dance ended too soon, or too late. Cassian didn't ask for another, didn't linger. He simply stepped back, watched, and left Elias with an awareness that refused to fade. From then on, Elias felt Cassian's attention everywhere, in every room, every moment. Awareness pressed against him, persistent, quiet. Something inside Elias began to crack, not his control, not yet, but something deeper. Elias tried to convince himself it meant nothing. One dance, one conversation, one alpha ignoring all the social choreography, but nothing in the season was insignificant. Everything was noticed, remembered, and used. By the second evening, invitations poured in, polite but heavy with expectation. Tea, promenades, private introductions. Elias played the game, accepted what was required, declined what he dared, and endured the rest. And Cassian kept appearing, not hovering, not intrusive, just present, watching. The attention was different. Most alphas surveyed him like an acquisition. Cassian wanted to understand him. That was worse, honestly, because understanding required honesty, and Elias wasn't sure he remembered how to be honest. "You're distracted," Lady Renford said, watching him over tea. She was sharper than most, the kind of woman Elias respected precisely because she didn't pretend softness was strength. "I'm not," Elias replied. She hummed, not fooled. "You've stirred interest." "Inevitable," Elias said. "Not like this." He didn't answer. She leaned forward. "Blackthorn doesn't do seasons. He doesn't pursue Omegas." Elias's hand tightened on his cup. "That's his choice." Lady Renford's voice softened. "But now he's chosen to pursue you." Elias set his cup down, careful. "He's chosen nothing." Even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. Then came Lord Frederick Harrow. He didn't need noise to announce his power. By the third week, his presence was unavoidable, polished, charming, safe. When he approached Elias, it was with the confidence of someone who already believed he'd won. "Lord Ashford," Harrow acknowledged, "I've heard much about you." "I imagine you've heard only what's useful." Harrow's amusement flickered. "Useful things are often the most important." Elias almost smiled. Almost. Harrow stepped closer. Not improperly, just intentionally. "I'd like to call on you. Not a question." Elias felt the difference. Cassian never demanded. Harrow didn't need to ask. "You may submit a request," Elias said evenly. Harrow studied him, smiled. "I will." Competition lurked everywhere now. Harrow moved quickly, public appearances, strategic gestures, carefully orchestrated gifts, always visible. Courtship wasn't just about Elias. It was about perception. Cassian did the opposite. No displays, no competition, no pretense at winning. He just existed in Elias's orbit quietly, which somehow made Elias notice him more. "You're making this worse," Elias told Cassian as they walked the garden. "How?" Cassian asked. "By not playing the game." Cassian shrugged. "I don't play games I don't respect." "That's not how this works." Cassian stopped. Elias caught up, annoyed. "It can be, if you decide." Elias's frustration boiled over. "You talk as if I have a choice." "You do." Cassian's certainty cut deep. Elias shook his head. "I don't." Cassian stepped closer. "Then why are you still resisting?" Elias had no answer. Resistance was automatic, his only defense. It was all he knew. The first crack came at dinner, small, controlled, just enough to expose the pressure beneath the surface. Harrow sat beside him, too confident. "You'll find stability matters more than preference," he said. Elias paused, his fork hovering. "I don't recall asking for guidance," Harrow smiled. "I offer it regardless." His hand lingered on Elias's wrist. Something inside Elias snapped just for a second. His scent slipped, uncontrolled. The tension in the room intensified. Alphas went still. Harrow's grip tightened. "There it is," Harrow murmured. Elias forced himself back under control, but it was too late. Across the room, Cassian moved, direct, unstoppable. "Remove your hand," Cassian said, not loud, but every word landed. Harrow's smile thinned. "And if I don't?" Cassian didn't raise his voice. "You will." Long, cold pause. Then Harrow released Elias. This was no longer decorous. This was territory. Elias left early that night, the garden colder and emptier than he needed. He barely noticed Cassian's footsteps behind him. "You lost control," Cassian said. Elias didn't turn. "I know." Silence stretched. "I didn't mean to," Elias said. "I know." That simple answer tore something open. Elias spun around. "You don't understand what that means." Cassian met his eyes. "Then explain it." Elias laughed, bitter, angry. "If I lose control, I become something to be owned." Cassian stepped closer, slowly. "Then don't give them that power." Elias's voice dropped. "I don't know how not to." Cassian stopped in front of him, close, careful. "Then learn. With me." That moment changed everything. Elias wasn't being told what he was. Cassian was asking what Elias wanted to become. He didn't know, but he wanted to find out. Elias didn't really sleep that night. He lay in the dark, body humming with too much awareness. He replayed that dinner, the loss of control, the avalanche of consequences, but above all, he remembered how Cassian moved, not predatory, not possessive, just recognizing, just restrained. Elias had always feared alpha attention. It always ended in ownership. That was the rule drilled into him since childhood. So why did Cassian feel like the only person in London who didn't want to take something from him? That thought should have been comforting. Instead, it unsettled him more than anything. By morning, the season's tone shifted again. Invitations grew cautious, measured, sometimes disappeared altogether. Whispers followed him. Unpredictable. Nearly lost control. Elias kept his face blank, ignored the whispers, but inside something twisted. His father's warning echoed. "This is what happens," Lord Ashford said, cold and precise. "You embarrass yourself. You reduce your value. You make yourself difficult to place." Elias stood straight. "I did not embarrass myself," his father countered. "You lost control. For a moment. That is all it takes." Silence hovered. Then the command. "You will accept Lord Harrow's proposal." Elias's breath stilled. "No." The words slipped out, automatic. The air chilled further. "You will," his father repeated. "No." Deliberate this time. The crack widened. Lord Ashford steps closer, not loud, not violent, just controlled. "You forget yourself." Elias held his ground. "I remember exactly who I am." For the first time, his father hesitated. The balance tilted. That evening, Harrow came, uninvited, unapologetic. Elias met him with perfect posture, expression neutral. "You've made things more difficult," Harrow said casually. Elias said nothing. Harrow stepped in too close. "But difficulty can be corrected." "How?" Elias asked. "By removing uncertainty, a threat disguised as help." "You'll accept my proposal," Harrow continued, voice lowered, "and this will all resolve." Elias felt something sharp twist inside, not fear, disgust. "I am not a situation to be resolved," Elias said. Harrow's smile thinned. "No. You are an Omega who has forgotten his place." Elias snapped his control tighter, scent locked down. "I have forgotten nothing." Harrow grabbed his chin, forcing Elias's gaze up. "Then act like it." The door opened. Cassian entered, silence thick as velvet. "Remove your hand," he said, quiet but unyielding. Harrow didn't move. "This is not your concern." Cassian stepped closer. "That's where you're mistaken." You could feel the tension, controlled, potent, undeniable. Harrow felt it too. His hand dropped, slow, deliberate. "This is not over," he promised, stepping back. Cassian didn't respond. He didn't need to. Everyone already knew something fundamental had shifted. Elias didn't thank Cassian. He didn't really know how. He just stood there, breathing too fast, thinking too much, feeling everything all at once. Cassian waited. He always waited. That made it harder. "You shouldn't have interfered," Elias managed finally. "I should have done it sooner." Elias let out a sharp breath. "You're making this worse." "No," Cassian said, stepping closer. "I'm making it visible." Elias turned on him. "I don't want visible." "Then what do you want?" Elias opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He'd never been asked that before, not by his father, not by anyone. Cassian didn't look away. "Say it." Elias's voice, rough. "I want to choose." Cassian nodded. "Then choose." The next gathering was not grand, smaller, more intimate, nowhere to hide. Harrow was there, of course. His father was across the room. The expectation palpable, the pressure built into something solid. Elias felt it pressing down. Choice, not out in the distance, but here and now. Harrow approached, confident, certain. "You've had time to consider." Elias looked at him, really looked, saw the control, the expectation, the assumption that Elias would simply fold into place. Something in Elias finally refused. "No." The word echoed. Harrow's expression changed. "This is not a request." "I know." Elias's voice didn't shake. "That's why the answer is no." Silence filled the room, thick with all the things that had never been said. Elias had chosen, and the weight of that, real, sharp, terrifying, was his own. And for the first time, he felt the ground shift beneath him, not away, but towards something he could finally shape himself, because this just wasn't done, not in their world. Omegas didn't refuse tradition, not openly, not with the kind of clarity everyone in that room just heard. His father stepped forward, like he could force the day back onto rails. Elias. But Elias kept his eyes away, steady on something else entirely, or maybe for the first time, on nothing at all. He turned, slow and deliberate. He walked. Not rushed, but not dragging his feet either. Just walking, step by step, right past the staring crowd. Every curious, judging, gossiping glance slid off him. He went beyond their expectations, past his own training. And he stopped in front of Cassian. The world felt like it was holding its breath, all the air sucked out and suspended in a moment that stretched just a little too long. "I choose you." Simple, final. Not a line rehearsed, not a whisper for later. Truth, sharper than anything else in the room. Cassian didn't smile, not really. His expression shifted, cracked open a little from the stone wall he usually kept. Something real swam to the surface. He leaned toward Elias, voice low, almost gentle. "You're certain?" Elias didn't flinch. He didn't look away, for the first time in my life. And that single line cut through all the rules and history. That's where the world spun differently. The silence didn't shatter. It just grew heavier. Everyone's eyes flicked between Elias and Cassian, weighing, measuring, already rewriting the future. Cassian paid them no mind. He only looked at Elias. "You know what this means," Cassian said, quiet, serious. "It means I stop waiting for someone else to decide," Elias answered. Was his voice trembling, or was that just the world itself? "And it means I am choosing you." Cassian weighed that for a second. No suspicion, no fear, just making sure. "Then I accept." The room didn't explode. It didn't need to. Something had already broken and remade itself when Elias spoke. Fallout didn't wait for the night to end. It trickled through the halls, the sharpest kind of whispers, the practiced sort of venom the upper echelons specialized in. Unthinkable. He refused Harrow, publicly. Blackthorn isn't a court man. Elias could almost feel the heat of those remarks at his back, but he kept his eyes forward and his steps measured, and maybe that was the most rebellious thing of all. He didn't look for his father's approval, the space where it would have been. Because if he turned, he knew he'd lose momentum, crumble from the weight of all he'd left behind. If Cassian noticed the tremor in Elias's hands, he said nothing. His presence, solid, stoic, anchored Elias as they moved through the storm of opinion. He didn't guide or pull. He didn't have to. He was simply there. And then came the moment Elias couldn't avoid. "Elias." His father's voice snapped through the corridor, clipped, cold, not something you could ignore even if you wanted to. Elias stopped, forced himself to turn. His father stood like a pillar, anger no longer hidden. "You will correct this." Old instincts threatened to drag Elias under, the urge to apologize, to defer, to fall right back into obedient lines. But he held his ground. No. One word, but it felt like a mountain shifting. His father wouldn't stop. You will not throw away everything we have built. I am not something you built, Elias said. Louder now, not quite defiant, just undeniable. And for half a second, Elias saw something break in his father. Real disappointment, real shock, but it solidified again just as quickly. If you proceed with this, you do so without my support. Elias swallowed the sting. He'd prepared himself for this. He thought he knew how much it would hurt, but nothing quite prepared you for that cut. Then I proceed without it. No more ties. Nothing left to sever. People talked. Of course they did. Some gossiped, some plotted, and some just watched curiously as formal arrangements began. The Ashford Omega had chosen wrong, if you asked most people, chosen the outlier, the one their system was built to exclude. Cassian handled the logistics with his usual efficiency. The arrangements unfolded, protection, documents, paperwork in triplicate. Security measures Elias hadn't even thought to ask for had been set up well in advance. Reading through stacks of contracts one evening, Elias frowned. You planned for resistance. Cassian made a noise, not quite a laugh. I expected it. You expect everything, Elias said, but it was softer, maybe a touch admiring. Cassian didn't look up right away, then murmured, not everything. And his eye caught on Elias, a glint Elias hadn't seen before. Not you. For a second, Elias's routine composure faltered. There, in the silence, he felt the difference. A new kind of uncertainty, the good kind. The estate felt nothing like London, just quiet. No critical glances, no undercurrents to every conversation, no carefully crafted traps. The house was big enough that the silence sometimes felt like a living thing. Cassian hardly asked anything of him. Honestly, that was harder to adjust to than the demands of court. For the first 2 nights, nothing happened. The third night, restlessness drove Elias from his room and into the study, where Cassian worked late as always. You don't sleep, Elias said, unable to disguise the observation. Cassian's reply was almost bored. I do. When? Eventually. And he didn't really expand on that. Elias moved closer, out of pure stubbornness. You're avoiding something. Cassian raised an eyebrow. Am I? Elias crossed his arms and nodded, challenging him to deny it. Cassian stood then, not with any rush, almost as if he were testing the space between them. Come here. A challenge, but not a demand. Elias hesitated, not because he was afraid to get close, but because he wanted it so badly he wasn't sure what to do about it. And then, in that endless stretch of possibility, he went. He covered the distance on his own terms. Cassian stopped within reach, close, refusing to make the final move, waiting for Elias to decide. You don't know what to do when you're not being controlled, Cassian told him. Not an accusation, just an honest observation. Elias's breath shivered a little, but he didn't lie. No. Cassian reached out, not forceful, not uncertain, just warm, grounding. His fingers closed gently around Elias's wrist, that small spark of contact, a kind of gift. Then we take it slow, Cassian said. Elias nodded. The safety in that, he felt it, immediate and real. Cassian's touch inched up, slow, wrist, forearm, shoulder. At every stage, Cassian paused, giving Elias space. Elias leaned into it, into him. Their boundaries shifted, but they did it together. No racing ahead, no assumption. Elias closed the distance just enough. Not all the way, but enough to make it matter, enough to say, this is my choice. The ceremony followed, small, private, exactly as they wanted, without the shadow of expectation, without the court's sharp eyes. When Elias took Cassian's hand, there were no invisible shackles, only solid ground. Cassian's promise was quiet, steady. I will not own you. Elias believed him. I know. And then softer, and I won't let anyone else try. Elias, stubborn as ever, reminded Cassian, I don't need protection. Cassian didn't argue, just stood taller, sure. I know, but I will stand with you anyway. And in that moment, something real and new bloomed between them. Not ownership, not submission, just two people finally standing side by side. Afterward, marriage didn't work like magic. Elias still woke up too early, moved with too much restraint, chose silence over comfort out of habit. But little by little, Cassian noticed every shift. The way Elias relaxed without scrutiny, let his guard down, and let his scent fill the room when he felt safe. Cassian never pushed for more than Elias could give. No pressure. He was just there. And somewhere along the line, Elias started stepping toward him on his own. And one night, hesitantly, he tested the ground. Don't ask this time, Elias whispered. Cassian's hand stilled, gentle. Are you sure? Yes, Elias replied. No more space between the words. This wasn't surrender. It was finally just connection, warmth, closeness, skin against skin, not losing himself and not being claimed, just being. Elias finally understood. This is what it means to choose. He noticed the change before almost anyone else. Body, heartbeat, everything felt off balance. Something deepened. His scent, his awareness, the way the world bent around him and Cassian. Cassian caught it, of course. You're different, he said one morning, gentler than usual. Elias nodded. I know. The physician only confirmed what both of them already suspected, an heir. But that word wasn't just about lineage. It brought history, danger, hope, and a little bit of terror. Elias's hand curled over his stomach, instinctively protective. I don't know how to do this. Cassian didn't flinch. He just reached for Elias, not to solve things, just to stay. You don't have to know, he said. Elias searched his face. And what do I do? You stay, Cassian said again. That word, it felt like a promise, heavy and hopeful. Elias breathed out, more sure than before. I think I can do that. For once, he believed it. Spring didn't slip in quietly. It barreled in. Winds wild, ground still cold, nothing in the world or Elias's body quite at ease. Pregnancy changed everything. Control, once rigid, untouchable, became something Elias had to battle. His scent rolled off him in tidal waves. Keeping it contained exhausted him. Cassian saw the struggle immediately. You're doing it again, he said. Elias turned away, stubborn in a way that hurt too. I have to. Cassian didn't soften, not really. No. That word meant something, and Elias heard it. You don't understand what happens if I lose control. Cassian didn't crowd him. I understand you're hurting yourself, trying not to feel. It's not the same, Elias argued. It is now, Cassian answered. All the old armor, all the old habits, they just didn't work here before. Control had kept Elias safe. Now it was starting to cut the other way. I don't know how to do this differently, Elias finally said. Then stop trying to do it alone, Cassian said. Elias closed his eyes, let tension bleed out of him. Cassian was here. He wasn't alone. He just needed to learn to believe it, Change didn't happen all at once, then suddenly, it did. One morning, Elias woke buzzing with energy and nerves as if something in his body had finally cracked open. His scent was wild, untamed. Cassian! Cassian was already there, steady and strong. His presence didn't overwhelm. It comforted. "You're all right," Cassian promised, holding the world at bay. Elias shook his head, panic fluttering inside him. "No, I can't." Cassian didn't rush. "You're safe." Instinct won out over habit. Elias drifted closer until the only way to keep from unraveling was Cassian's arms around him, anchoring, not caging. His scent surged. Cassian just breathed with him, slow and steady. "Don't fight it," he murmured. Elias's voice broke. "I don't know how not to." Cassian's hand cradled the back of his neck. "Then let me help." So Elias did. It wasn't pretty or precise. He pressed himself against Cassian, breath choppy, hands clinging not from neediness but trust. Cassian held him through every surge and every break, never taking, only giving space. And when the world settled, Elias realized he didn't feel weaker. He felt real, whole, maybe for the first time. He felt lighter, like the weight he'd been carrying forever finally eased. It was almost strange, the way relief settled in, shaky lungs and all. He leaned against Cassian, still trying to steady himself. His words ran out. There simply wasn't a name for it. Cassian didn't fill the silence, didn't rush to explain or reassure. He just stayed there, solid and quietly present. And honestly, that meant everything. More than words ever could. The final move. Harrow didn't vanish. Men like him hung around, always lingering where you least wanted. He waited, kept his eyes open and learned the rules, then bent them. And when he finally made his move, it was sharp as a blade. He launched a legal attack, a challenge against Blackthorn Holdings, picking at the bond and its legitimacy, at the heart of it all. Elias. "He wants to force a review of the bond," Elias said, steady as ever, even as he scanned the legal document. Cassian stood across from him, unmoving. "He won't succeed," Cassian said. Simple. Elias glanced up, searching his face. "You don't sound worried." "I'm not." That unshakable confidence, quiet but undeniable, made Elias stop and rethink everything. For the longest time, he'd been something to shield, something Cassian had to control, to keep safe. But now, that changed. Now he was in the fight. Not just surviving, actually contending. "He isn't playing to win," Elias said, almost thoughtful. Cassian's eyes narrowed, sharp. "He's provoking you," Cassian caught on. "Trying to make me unstable," Elias agreed. "Trying to show I can't handle this role." They both knew that trick. And this time, Elias refused to fall for it. He straightened, drawing a firmer breath. "We don't react," Elias said. Cassian watched, interested. "Explain." "We answer, but on our terms. We don't let him dictate how we move." And in that instant, everything shifted. Elias wasn't just the target anymore. He was steering the game. Confrontation. Harrow showed up in person because someone like him never trusted others to do his dirty work. He believed in control. You could see it in the way he squared himself, always taking command of a room. But Elias didn't wait alone this time. He wasn't hiding behind Cassian either. He stood beside him, equal. "You've complicated things," Harrow complained. Elias met his eyes, unwavering. "No," Elias said. "I made things clear." The smile Harrow offered back was thin, almost mocking. "You're still an Omega." Elias didn't blink, didn't tense. "Yes," he answered. The word didn't sting anymore. It didn't shrink him, didn't mark him as weak. It was just true. And you still don't control what that means, Harrow pressed. Elias stepped forward, squaring his shoulders. But I do. The room felt heavy, waiting for his next move. This wasn't the same Elias Harrow had cornered weeks ago, quieter, afraid, waiting for permission. He'd chosen where to stand now. You lost your chance, Elias said quietly. You never had me. Harrow's expression flickered uncertain for the first time. That was it. The end of his grip. Ending. Summer came inching in, soft and slow. The cold faded, replaced by gentle warmth, and sun spilling into rooms once shadowed and tense. Elias found himself outside, standing in the garden with his hand over the curve of his belly, small but real, a sign of what was coming next. Everything felt quieter here, not silent, but the world wasn't crowding in, wasn't pressing against him anymore. Cassian walked up, as steady as always, not leading, not following, just being there. Thinking again, Cassian teased, nudging Elias gently. Elias laughed, a little embarrassed. I always do. Cassian slid his hand over Elias's, anchoring him. And now? Elias looked across the estate, at the life he'd fought for, at the future growing inside him, and at the man beside him. Now, Elias said, soft, deciding, I think I'm finally living. Cassian didn't rush to answer. He didn't need to. Elias leaned into him, easy and natural. No second thoughts, no old fears, just something steady, something he chose, something he knew would last.